Atlanta police officers were charged in the connection with Rayshard Brooks' death outside a Wendy's parking lot. But Georgia Congressman Doug Collins is calling foul, saying the charges against the officer by the Fulton County District Attorney are political. Collins wants an independent prosecutor to investigate instead, saying you cannot prosecute cases until the investigation is over. You don't do it for politics. Your job is to find justice for everyone, end quote. Well, joining us is Republican Congressman Doug Collins of Georgia. He is the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, welcome back.
It's good to be back.
All right. Well, you're asking for this independent prosecutor in the Rayshard Brooks case. Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr, he said that it can be done if the DA says that they're disqualified or the court disqualifies them as well. But do you think that it will happen?
I hope it happens, because justice has to be blind in this case, and they have to do the investigation. And, you know, Attorney General Carr has the right to go to court if he wanted to help force that, or he could continue to put pressure on the DA like I'm trying to do to get an independent prosecutor that actually can make a real judgment call here. The Atlanta Police Department are hurting right now, and they need people to stand behind them.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing from what I read is that the Georgia Bureau of Investigations hadn't even completed its investigation. They put out a statement saying that they hadn't even been consulted before the charges were filed, which I thought was completely odd.
Yeah, they have not been. They were not consulted, have not finished the investigation. And remember, Paul Howard's in a runoff right now, in which he came in second place in the election 2 weeks ago. This is nothing but politics, and there's nothing in the prosecutor's ethics that say that you can prosecute just because you need to win an election.
Yeah, that's true. Let me switch gears for a second today. Speaking of interesting investigations, Michael Flynn looks like he finally might go free, although Alan Dershowitz gave us some concern as to why it might not be the end. What was your reaction to the court finally telling the other court to do its job and stop pressing these charges against Flynn?
Relief. It's time this is over. It's time these people be held accountable. It's time for him to get free, as he should have been. And it's time for judges to start being judges and quit being political activists because they don't like this administration. So I'm glad to see this happen. There may be some concern, but I think this will probably hopefully end it, and General Flynn can get on with life that was taken from him by basically corrupt DOJ officials.
You know, Congressman, you've heard a lot of political rhetoric, I'm sure, in your race for the Senate, in your time in the House, and obviously the sparring you do with Jerry Nadler. But I heard something yesterday that really took the current situation to a new level. Nancy Pelosi was doing an interview with CBS Radio, and she was asked about the death of George Floyd. Let me play you a clip of what she said.
There are many, many good people in law enforcement, but not all, and that we have to address those concerns. So when they admit that and have some suggestions that are worthy of consideration, but so far they were trying to get away with murder, actually, the murder of George Floyd.
I think that to me goes so far beyond anything to accuse the Republicans who are putting forward a police reform bill under the leadership of Senator Tim Scott to be guilty of murder. And she's saying today she's not apologizing. There's a lot of stuff that has been said in politics, especially recently. That, to me, probably rises to the top of the list.
But unfortunately, it's not surprising for this speaker. She is one who has abused the rules of this House since she became Speaker again. She's taken on the president every opportunity, calling him everything from, a liar to someone who's done criminal acts. This is not new for Nancy Pelosi. What is normal for Nancy Pelosi is to vilify the other side. For those of us who worked on First Step Back, who brought both sides of the parties together, who brought all together so that we could actually make a difference in our communities, this is just sad. She needs to, frankly, step down as Speaker of the House. She's lost her ability to lead, in my opinion, because what she's doing right now is vilifying the other side when we're actually trying to make sure that people are held accountable, too. And as a son of a Georgia State Trooper, that's offensive. She needs to be held accountable.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you're talking about all the things that Republicans are trying to do in the House and the Senate to advance this issue and deal with the issues today, and yet she's out there accusing people of murder. Like I said, I've heard a lot. I know you certainly have heard a lot. This, to me, rises so much higher than any of this because this is really disgusting what she has said. Anyway, Congressman, thank you for coming back with us and sharing your thoughts on all of these three very important issues.
It's always great to be with y'all. Take care.
All right. Well, thank you. You just heard that clip that we played of Nancy Pelosi accusing Republicans of, quote, trying to get away with the murder of George Floyd. Now, listen to the follow-up question from the CBS radio reporter. His name is Steve Futterman. Just listen to how he follows up with what we just played for you the first time. Here we go.
So far, they were trying to get away with murder, actually, the murder of George Floyd.
There has been another issue as far as the emergence and the anger and the disappointment that people are having with police departments, this idea of defunding police. Do you understand why some Americans just sort of take a step back when they hear that term? Is that something that we have to be careful when we hear that term used over and over again?
All right, so let me just bring in our next guest. Joining us is the media reporter for The Hill, Joe Concha. Before I give you my take on this, Joe, as I just said to Congressman Doug Collins, I've heard a lot. I know you as a media reporter cover a lot, see a lot. That to me was one of the most offensive political comments that I've ever seen, to try to accuse somebody of a heinous murder that it was, especially when one of the things that we're trying to do is come together politically speaking and figure out how we move forward. But what I think is, and the reason I want your reaction, is because it was just unbelievable that the CBS reporter, host, whatever he is, didn't say a damn thing. He just let it go. It was sort of like someone just accused someone of murder, used that kind of language, and it was like, okay, let's keep going. I don't know another reporter that wouldn't have stopped and said, excuse me. If that was a Republican that had said that, he would have stopped dead in his tracks and said, excuse me, you just accused someone of murder. Do you want to take that back, or you further explain it? But he rolled on.
Sean, the only three words that come to mind is piss poor journalism. I'm sorry. As you just said, as if somebody just said, you know, it's sunny and 82 out right now with a light wind out of the west. Basically, that's what he did. Not even challenge, not even say, excuse me, Madam Speaker, you're accusing somebody like, say, Tim Scott, for instance, an African-American, of being culpable in the killing of George Floyd while he was being taken into police custody. That was because of that police officer in Minneapolis and no one else. And if you do that, that is like blaming Barack Obama for Freddie Gray in Baltimore in 2015, or Michael Brown in Ferguson. The president or the Senate doesn't have anything to do with these isolated incidents. And yes, that police officer in Minneapolis will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, as he should be. But let's stop bringing the fact that she could say whatever she wants, much like Joe Biden, and never get challenged for it. As a journalist, I mean, don't you care? Don't you have any pride in what you do anymore? Apparently, Mr. Futterman, interesting name, does not.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting that you did have Peter Alexander, who pushed back on her this today, and I want to play that for you real quick.
When you were speaking yesterday, you said that Republicans are, quote, trying to get away with murder, actually, the murder of George Floyd. Senate Republicans are demanding an apology for that statement. Will you apologize?
Absolutely, positively
Yikes. I mean, that is insane to me.
I'll give Peter Alexander credit, by the way.
Yeah.
He's the only reporter, Joe, aside from the guy who blew it by not asking, to Lindsay's point, he actually asked the question, which shocks me, to be honest, that NBC actually, tried to do this, but, oh.
Yeah, Lindsay, Sean, though, but you see Peter Alexander during White House press briefings. You've dealt with him yourself, Sean. You think he would have just let that go after leaving an open-ended question like, will you apologize? Of course not. He would get on a moral pedestal like a Jim Acosta and continue to grill. And I didn't see that here either. So, yeah, great deal for Nancy Pelosi. Say whatever you want, tear up the State of the Union address, and either get cheered or barely challenged or not challenged at all by a press corps that
Joe,
just lets her basically get away with anything.
I'm glad you brought up the State of the Union. When she walked off of the floor of the State of the Union after ripping it up, a reporter asked her why she did it. She said it was full of lies. They all laughed and kept going. It continues to be this pattern where she says whatever she wants, and there's no pushback. It's unbelievable.
And by the way, can somebody ask her a very simple question, Lindsay and Sean? What have you accomplished since taking back the House in 2018? Because, we follow this stuff, and I can't think of one thing that she has done to better the lives, or at least attempt to better the lives, of the American people. She is strictly there to prove to be the opposition to the president, and obviously to take back other parts of government, the Senate. I know she's the House majority, she's the House Speaker, but she seems just to be there just to criticize the president and not actually get anything done, which at last check is her job.
Yeah, the only two things she's gotten done, Joe, are the two I's: investigations and impeachment. Nothing that benefits the American people, just stuff to help her political, base feel good.
The eyes of March, I guess you could call it, Sean, except it happened in December and January.
All right, well, we'll have to adjust the calendar. Joe Concha, thank you as always for weighing in on stuff like this.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right. Well, first it was statues, and now it's colleges. The cancel culture takes aim at one of the most prestigious Ivy League schools. Trish Regan has her say next.